Many students don't enter the classroom with all of the skills that they need to be successful in school. Because of trauma or lack of modeling or unstable home environments, students often haven't been taught the skills necessary for effortful control or the ability to utilize their attentional resources to regulate emotions and behaviors. The good news is that these skills can be taught. For example, the research by the Center on the Developing Child has told us that executive functions aren't fully developed until late teens or early 20s. However, when students are taught to focus and shift their attention, manage their emotional reactivity, limit distractions, and update information in working memory, they have greater agency over their success in school. An important thing to note here is that none of these skills are correlated with intelligence. They are a measure of a student's ability, and they determine whether a student is able to use the intelligence they have and apply it to be able to succeed in school and life. But the skills are not correlated with intelligence. They are completely separate from how intelligent a student is. But a student may have tons of intelligence, but isn't able to apply it to school and isn't able to apply it to succeed in their life because they lack the necessary skills. They are not issues of will and a need for control or correction through rewards and consequences won't help a student to make progress because, as I discussed in the previous video, it's not an issue of will, but of skill. The student lacks the necessary skills in order to be successful in school. I'm Nina Parrish, a licensed special education teacher and school counselor. I'm the founder of Parrish Learning Zone, an educational services company in Northern Virginia, and the author of The Independent Learner. I recently ran into some research by Harvard psychologist Stuart Ablon, where he discussed the 5 neurocognitive, which basically means they're thinking skill areas that students need to be taught in order to be successful. And he was really referring to skill areas that any people can be taught in order to be successful. But the reason that this resonated with me was because it lines up with the way I was thinking and the research I was seeing when I wrote my book, The Independent Learner, to help students develop the skills that they need to succeed in school. And in his research, the 5 skills needed for students to succeed or for people to succeed in school or life would be, the first one would be language and communication skills. And language and communication skills, it refers to the ability to express what you need instead of using behavior like yelling or biting or kicking or hitting. A student or a child would be able to express what they need using words or language. And if we think about it, if you've had little kids, kids are at a stage in their life when they're little where they don't have the ability to express what they need using their words and language. And that's where you often see things like tantrums or throwing themselves on the ground, right? And just because a kid has gotten older doesn't necessarily mean that their skill level is matching up with their chronological age. So sometimes students can be taught the language and communication skills, or they need to be taught the language and communication skills necessary to express what they want to need instead of expressing that with their behaviors that would be considered counterproductive or not appropriate for school. The second skill area that can be taught is attention and working memory skills. Attention and working memory skills are the ability to focus on something that's, especially something that's not interesting to you. And this is really needed in school because students have to learn about things that maybe are not an interest area for them or not a top priority. And even if you have a child who struggles with executive functioning or maybe has ADHD, you might be saying, well, they can focus on video games for hours, or they can hyper focus on an area of interest for a very, very long time. But these are specifically referring to attention and working memory skills that allow you to focus on something that is not your top interest, and also the ability to shift your attention when needed back and forth between things, or to choose what is the priority to focus on within a particular setting. So instead of focusing on the way that your clothing feels, or the emotions of the person beside you, or the noise that's happening out in the hallway, you're able to focus on the instruction that you're receiving from the teacher, or the task that you're supposed to be completing in front of you. And then the third part, the last part of the attention and working memory skills would be using your working memory, and you're having the ability to hold multiple pieces of information in your working memory, because that is what's required for problem solving in life and in school, that you have to be able to hold multiple possibilities within your mind. You have to be able to think about multiple different solutions and have that not shut down the whole system or freeze up the whole system. Or if you think about it kind of like a computer, somebody who's having working memory issues, it's like when you open up too many tabs and you get, if it's an Apple computer, you get that little spinning wheel. And if you keep opening up tabs, the whole computer freezes up and might shut down. Our working memory is kind of like that. So we don't want to get to the point when we're doing normal problem solving activities that were required in school that we're having a shutdown or a freeze up of our entire working memory. Obviously, that system is not functioning the way that it should. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, the executive functioning system, the attention, is kind of like the air traffic controller of your brain. So we want to be able to prioritize of all the information that's coming in, prioritize the important information and focus on the things that allow us to be able to be successful. The third skill area that is a thinking skill that can be taught in order for students to be more successful in school are emotional regulation and self-regulation skills. So this is the ability to manage and control your emotions. And a big part of this is impulse control and self-control. At school, we tend to impose consequences for kids not doing what they're supposed to do, but consequences only work if somebody has good impulse control. They have to be able to think about their actions right now and what might be the future ramifications of that. So what I'm saying is that consequences don't work for the majority of students that we're imposing consequences on, because they don't have the skill of impulse control or the ability to think about the future implications of their actions. Impulse control is a skill that can be developed and taught in order for kids to be able to plan ahead, to think about what the consequences of their actions might be, and maybe decide to do something different, to be able to regulate themselves in a way that causes them to be able to be more successful in school, and to be able to learn self-control and to regulate their emotions in a way that allows them to be able to be successful in an academic environment. The fourth skill is flexible thinking. Flexible thinking is being able to choose a strategy based on the situation and being able to kind of wing it if necessary. And it involves something that I talk about in the independent learner is being able to think about your own thinking and assess, what's in front of you and decide on a strategy based on the situation that you're encountering, and being able to be flexible with that thinking instead of thinking about things in a very rigid way and always doing things the same way or using the same strategy. The fifth skill is social thinking skills. Social thinking skills are all the skills that go into managing social interactions, understanding how our behavior impacts other people, and responding to feedback from our environment. So when we act in a certain way, being able to see the feedback that we get from other people and take that in and respond to that feedback loop. Being able to engage in perspective taking. Can you understand where somebody else might be coming from? Being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and exercise empathy for other people are all a part of social thinking skills. And those 5 skills are skill areas that can be taught to students to make them more successful in life and in school. So again, those are language and communication skills, attention and working memory skills, emotion and self-regulation skills, flexible thinking, and social thinking skills. And so an important thing to note here towards the end of these thoughts is discipline, if you're teaching, should be about teaching the correct behavior and skills. Because if it's not a will issue, it's a skill issue, then as educators, discipline should mean that we're teaching the correct behavior and teaching the correct skills. Because when we try to motivate somebody with an external motivator to get kids to do the stuff we want them to do, research shows that it actually decreases their internal motivation. So what I mean here is that if we are using like a ticket system or a token system or a reward system, a point system, they may show motivation to earn the prize, but they become less internally motivated, is what research has shown us over and over again, to learn or behave. So that ticket or token, they may show a temporary motivation to earn that prize, but it decreases their internal motivation over time. They also may act in maladaptive ways or in unethical ways in order to earn the reward. They might cheat to earn the reward. They might manipulate the system in order to earn the reward. And then what's being taught is not actually what you wanted the student to learn. Rewards and consequences have this effect on long-term internal motivation because they send the student the message that they're not trying hard enough. And if they just tried harder, they could improve their behavior. And over time, if you treat a student like they're lazy or unmotivated, or if the way that you're treating them sends the message that maybe they're just not trying hard enough, or maybe they're not that smart or bright, they'll start to internalize that message and they'll start to act that way. When in fact, often the case is that students just don't have the skills. Research has shown that exposure to trauma as a child delays skill development needed to succeed in school. So often the behavior that we see in the classroom is about a lack of skill, not a lack of will. And we are taught as educators to be trauma sensitive. And what that means is that teachers, counselors, social workers, administrators have to have the ability to realize that students come to school lacking these skills and to teach students the skills that they're missing. And we don't have to respond to discipline punitively. And responding punitively means that we're responding with rewards or consequences. In order to change the behavior for the long term, if that's our goal with students, we have to learn to respond to behavior relationally. Lasting behavior change comes from building relationships with students, where students and educators work together on building skills that allow for greater success in school.